interested in becoming a reformer instructor in 2025, I am going to tell you exactly what you need to know. I became a reformer instructor last year and I thought it would be really helpful for me to explain a little bit about the process, what it's really like being a reformer teacher, what you can really expect, and hopefully help you make the decision to see if it's the right path for you. Channel, my name's Sophie. I've been coaching flexibility, handstands and calisthenics for the last 5 years, and I recently became a reformer instructor in October 2024 and full head first into teaching, and it's been a real whirlwind couple of months. And Reformer Pilates has really boomed in the last couple of months, and seeing so many of these type of videos like I'm quitting my job to become a Pilates instructor. And while that's so amazing if you're following your dreams, I just want to make sure people know a bit more, I guess, about the industry, what you're getting yourself into, and just share a little bit about that process and why I decided to do it. For me personally, I was teaching a lot of flexibility work. My business is built off of goal-orientated strength and flexibility training for movement lovers. And I just wanted to learn a little bit more, push myself out of my comfort zone, and ultimately I was really missing getting in front of people. At the moment, there is nowhere I live in Essex where I could walk into a space and teach a handstand and calisthenics class. I knew I wanted to get myself in front of more people. I was spending a lot of time at home on my own, and I just don't think that's a great position to be in if you are a coach and a trainer, because you need to be in front of people physically all the time to learn and to grow, and for me to grow as a trainer. So although I was teaching workshops and I'm working with a lot of clients online, there is just nothing like that one-to-one interaction. And I was speaking to a friend and she said, have you ever thought about reformer? And the more I looked into it, the more I realised that reformer is a perfect blend of everything I love. It's strength training, it's flexibility training, it's control, it's movement, it's stability, and it's kind of packaged in a way that doesn't seem so daunting. So yeah, I decided to go and do my course back in October, and yeah, I've been in the world of reformer now for a good few months. Now, what I thought would be helpful is to discuss the difference between being a reformer teacher and a reformer Pilates teacher. You can become a reformer instructor if you have a level 3 qualification. What that means is a level 3 qualification would be the equivalent of a mat Pilates qualification or a level 3 personal training qualification. A level 3 qualification is essentially something where you have done a lot of learning, both online and in person. It covers things like your anatomy and physiology, covers how to teach, how to program, client interaction. It's a big kind of chunky course. The reason you have to do that before you do reformer is an add-on. They expect you to already have knowledge of the body, of the core, of how to teach a lunge or a squat. They expect you to have that kind of knowledge, and then with reformer you are learning how to teach that on the machine and how to use the machine safely and structure a class. I think that's definitely something to be aware of, is from the path that I know, you have to have that qualification before going in. I am not mat Pilates qualified. I am a personal trainer, and I was a personal trainer for about 5 years before I decided to do my reformer course. And I think the route you go into it depends on the type of teacher and what you really see for your future. I did it that way round because at the time I had more of an interest in reformer. I could take the skills and the teaching that I have done for the last few years and incorporate that into this new skill that I was learning. But some people don't want to just teach reformer, they want to teach mat. And I actually think mat is a hugely more accessible variation of Pilates than reformer is. You need to just think about the type of teacher you want to be. And it's not saying that you can't change, but it's like, what route do you want to go in? You can be a more classical teacher, you can be a more contemporary teacher. Now, the course I did was a functional reformer teacher. I'm not classically trained. So I'm always going to be teaching a more dynamic, functional style of reformer, whereas some people want to go to a classical class. So that might come from you going to different classes, going to a classical class, going to a more dynamic and contemporary class, doing some mat Pilates and seeing which version aligns with you, what you enjoy, because ultimately you want to teach the classes that you enjoy. They're going to be much easier to teach, much easier to plan, much easier to be passionate about towards your clients. For those of you that maybe are Essex or London based, I did my reformer teaching at London Pilates Academy and they were brilliant. I loved the teaching. I felt really confident and supported through the entire learning process. The course was 4 in-person days, plus a whole load of online learning. And I also know that London Pilates Academy do mat courses as well. So if you are interested, I can speak really, really highly of them. I didn't come out of there with any questions as such. I felt like I could go and plan a class and teach a class, which I did. Now, I think once you've got your reformer qualification, there's a couple of different things that could happen. Obviously, you're going to start approaching studios for jobs. I was really lucky in the sense that I was approached by a studio to come and work for them and I didn't need to audition. So they kind of just said, when can you start? And I said, I can start on this day. And they said, okay, off you go. And I was like panicking because I think it was a Saturday and I think I taught 3 classes. And I was like, this is intense. But some studios will ask you to go in and do what's called a teach back, so maybe you'll teach part of the class or swap in and out from teaching with a instructor so they can see your energy, they can see how you plan, etc, etc. Some studios may have a specific style or way they like to teach, so they may want you to do some in-house training with them. They might want you to do some shadowing to see how their teachers teach. I think it is really, really dependent on the studio. I haven't had that experience because both of the studios I work in have just been like, we just want you to be yourself and teach in the style that you teach. You're going to take some classes there, see if you gel with the other instructors, see if you like the vibe of the studio. Do they feel welcoming? Is the manager nice? Do they feel quite open and stuff? I think those are all quite important things because you are going to be spending quite a lot of time there. You want to be working in an environment that supports you and supports your learning and encourages you as a teacher. Pay. Some studios have a flat rate and then will pay you slightly more if your classes are full. This is similar for both of the studios that I work at, in that you do get paid higher if your classes are full. At first, I found it a little bit intense. I've never really been in an environment like that where I almost feel like I had to book up my classes because financially, depending on it. But also, it's kind of not your job to fill the classes. It's the studio's job to fill the classes, but you will naturally notice that some people really enjoy your teaching style and enjoy coming to your classes, and then if you want to share the times you're teaching for people to come to class, then that could be that. But obviously there is almost a slight incentive there for your classes to be full so you get paid more. I found is that the rate for being a reformer teacher outside of London is probably the same as on average what I'd be paid, slightly less than what I'd be paid for a one-to-one PT. I think if you are deciding to quit your job over this, factor that in to how many days a week you would need to work to be able to match your previous salary. You don't get paid for time in between classes and class planning. So you are doing quite a lot of work for free. At the start, class planning can take quite a long time because you are trying to link all these exercises together, thinking of the most effective spring changes and transitions, and making sure all of that fits into your 50 minutes. It might feel like you're doing quite a lot of work for free, and especially if you are teaching multiple classes a week at the same studio, it's likely that you're going to have new class plans because the same people might come to class in that week. Now, what I found doing is you can have kind of themes of the week, so it doesn't matter so much if you have the same warm-up that week, the same cool-down that week, the same theme of lunges that week, and you can make slightly different changes, but it's definitely something to consider, is that you're going to be doing a lot of planning work outside of your time in the studio that you're not going to be paid for. And also, if you have breaks between your classes, you're not getting paid for those either. It's highly likely that you're going to be teaching multiple classes back to back. So you could be doing 3, 4, 5, or even 6, if you're crazy like I am on Saturday, to teach all these classes back to back. So you can make more than kind of doing 1 or 2 in a row. It is definitely something to be aware of. And another thing to be aware of, especially if you are doing those back-to-back classes, because you are kind of trying to make up that income, is reformer teaching is a big energy exchange. You are not physically doing the class, you're verbally instructing a lot of the time, but you are on it. You are all eyes on the ball, trying to be the best instructor for everybody in that room, making sure everybody's understanding, making sure everyone's doing the progression or the regression that's right for them. Does someone need to change a spring, etc., etc. And you're talking the entire time. So I think sometimes it takes a little bit of just giving things a go to kind of work out where your boundaries are and where you are going to just hit burnout. Now, I touched on it briefly, but in reformer, you are most likely going to be verbally cueing your clients. And as someone that has taught classes for a very long time, but I've always done them, this was hard for me. It took me a little while to get used to, because I had to get used to already knowing what I was going to say to explain how to do a specific movement. And I think don't give yourself too much of a hard time at the start, because I do think this is actually quite an unnatural thing and you will get better at it. But the best piece of advice that I have had is, if you teach a class and you explain something and it doesn't quite land, just make a mental note of it, write it down, and come back to it later to think about how you could have explained that better. It's natural you're going to fumble your words. It's natural that sometimes the things that come out of your mouth won't make sense. I cannot tell you how many times I've said something and I thought, why did you say that? And it's almost a great practice in learning to slow down and really think about what you're saying. The reason I want to touch on this in terms of, making sure people know this is sometimes people that are new aren't always fantastic at being an active listener, and I think doing reformer requires you to be a really good active listener, because you always have to listen to the cues, what's going on, what's coming next, because there's no one physically demoing in front of you. So the clearer you can learn to be with your cues, the easier your class is going to flow and the less people are going to get confused. I think another important thing to talk about is the ability to take criticism, feedback, understanding of why sometimes your classes aren't full, because I think in a job like teaching, you cannot afford to take everything personally, and you cannot afford to not be able to take criticism, just because it will not be everyone's cup of tea. I think the quote is like, you could be the juiciest peach and there'll still be someone that doesn't like peaches. At first, I was like, I wanted everyone to love it. I wanted to make sure everyone came back. But you get to see these people for such a small snippet, and you want to do the best and be the best teacher you can for them. But your teaching style just might not be for them, and that's okay. I have a quite dynamic teaching style. I love a bit of a flexibility focus. I love some spice. And for some people, that might not be what they want, and that's okay. It's not someone outright saying, oh, I don't like her. Or maybe it is. But it's also not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you need to quit your job. It doesn't mean you're terrible. It's just someone's personal preference. Take it from me, as a people pleaser, you will exhaust yourself if you cannot detach from that mindset. In that as well, you're working with people all day. Sometimes you're the start of someone's day. Sometimes you're the end of someone's day. Paid probably quite a bit of money to come to this class. So do you have the ability to kind of separate your emotions from maybe what's going on in your day and switch on and give it your all for teacher mode in that moment? You have the ability to create a safe space for the people in your class to be able to adapt to situations in the room, be welcoming, and always just be open to learning more. From all of those things, you're not expected to be perfect straight away. And I don't think you should not do something because you maybe don't feel like you have all of those elements, because you will grow and learn to be them. But I think it's just considering the full, I guess, weight of the job, because it is still a responsibility. People are trusting you with their training and their health and fitness on this big machine. So I think as long as you know that and you're willing to learn and willing to grow, then I think reformer is a wonderful thing to teach. And from my experience, yes, it is a lot of early mornings and a lot of late nights, but you're in an environment that is really welcoming. I don't dread getting up in the morning to go and teach. It's a job at the end of the day. It requires you to be in certain places, going to require you to deal with difficult scenarios, but just in a much more fun, friendly, flexible environment. I do hope though that this video has maybe given you a little bit of an insight into what it's like to teach and how you go about doing it and what it could be like when you've actually qualified. And if you do have any more questions, do let me know. I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time I talk about reformer on this channel moving forwards. And I'll see you guys really soon.